The new embassy is an old U.S. consular building until a larger site can be found. All 86 foreign missions in Israel were invited to the opening ceremonies. 33 attended. CBS Evening News anchor Jeff Glor is there.
Hallelujah. With about 800 in attendance, the mood inside the embassy was festive. First daughter Ivanka Trump, along with husband and White House senior advisor Jared Kushner, led the American delegation.
We welcome you officially and for the first time to the Embassy of the United States here in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel.
The Israeli prime minister praised the move, calling it historic.
What a glorious day. Remember this moment.
Christians George and Cheryl Morrison traveled from Colorado.
I've never been more proud to be an American than I was today.
Just 10 miles away in Ramallah on the West Bank, we met with Palestinians who were angry, believing that today's embassy move destroys their dreams of making Jerusalem their capital. Can Jerusalem be for both Palestinians and Jews?
No, Jerusalem just for Palestinian people.
Only Palestinians?
Just for Palestinian people. This is our rights, and this is our history.
Mustafa Barghouti is a 64-year-old doctor and a longtime member of the Palestinian parliament. Do you think the two-state solution is dead?
The two-state solution is in serious trouble.
Serious trouble?
Yeah, it can die.
A march here began as planned. It was one of several across the West Bank today. They're coming down all the streets into the main square. From there, they move to one of the refugee camps, and then from there, go to a crossing into Israel. And that is often where you see the flashpoints where violence can happen. We're at one of the flashpoints right now, situated in between. You hear tear gas being fired right now. We're going to put our masks on. These girls use their hands and hijabs to try to keep the tear gas off them. One was rescued by a volunteer team and rushed off to be treated.
Jeff Glor reporting from Jerusalem. Ilan Goldenberg is Middle East Security Director at the Center for a New American Security. He joins me now via Skype from Washington. Welcome, Ilan.
Great to be here.
So you wrote that this embassy move may mark, quote, the end of America's role as the central mediator of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Why is U.S. involvement necessary when it comes to brokering a peace plan?
Well, I think the problem is that fundamentally the U.S. has for the last 25 years been the central broker in the peace process, and for a couple of things that we've done today really call that into question. The first is we gave a huge political victory to the Palestinians and gave absolutely nothing, or to the Israelis and gave absolutely nothing to the Palestinians. And that's a real problem. Moving the embassy by itself was not the problem, but moving the embassy, and you could have done it if you, for example, also declared an embassy for the Palestinians in Jerusalem. Instead, we're going to have two capitals in Jerusalem. So if you're going to be touching these very sensitive issues, final status core issues to the parties like Jerusalem, you want to do it in a way that's fair and balanced and that both sides feel like they're getting something. The second thing is, really, again, for the past 25 years as the mediator, we've tried to act as the firefighter. Instead, today we acted as the arsonist. It's already a sensitive moment. You have the situation in Gaza. You have the situation with, the 70th anniversary of what's called the Nakba for the Palestinians, the day of catastrophe. You have Ramadan starting tomorrow. All of these sensitive things happening at the same moment. The last thing we would historically do is throw additional gasoline on the fire by doing something provocative. And yes, that's exactly what we did today when the United States and the Trump administration chose to make this of all days the possibly worst day, but this of all days the day to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Well, as you know, the White House says it does not think Monday's violence hurts the prospects of a Middle East peace plan. What's your thought?
Well, I think the White House has taken a very unbalanced approach to the situation in terms of violence and how we look at this issue. We've had incredible criticism of Hamas, which I totally agree with. Hamas is part of the problem, obviously, and you can sympathize with Israel when they have Palestinians rushing at these borders and which go right into the state of Israel and the need to defend themselves. But traditionally, what administrations would be doing in a situation like this is both criticizing Hamas and encouraging restraint on the Palestinian sides to stay away from the fence, but also encouraging restraint on the Israeli side and saying, be careful, be judicious in how you use force, try to limit the fatalities, try to limit the injuries. And you're not hearing any of that from the American administration right now. So no wonder Palestinians feel like we're taking an unbalanced position, because we're not doing what we usually do, which is trying to be as balanced as we can.
So to follow up on that, in Jared Kushner's speech, he said Palestinians participating in Gaza border protests are, quote, part of the problem and not part of the solution. What do you make of that statement?
Well, I think Hamas is part of the problem, and encouraging Palestinians who rush the border is part of the problem. Participating in protests, I don't think, is part of the problem. It depends on the different people who are doing different things. But there's a more fundamental problem here. There's also a challenge of Israel, and more than anything, there's a challenge of trying to actually get to a two-state agreement, which means having both sides take many difficult steps that can get us there. And even if you can't get to an agreement today, at least what you can be doing today is looking for immediate short-term steps that both sides can take to improve the situation on the ground. Israel can be doing more in the West Bank and in Gaza in terms of economic support for the Palestinians. It can be limiting its settlement construction in certain areas, at least keeping it only west of the barrier that separates Israel and the Palestinians in the West Bank. And Palestinians can also be doing things like reducing the level of incitement that you see in Palestinian books and literature and the anti-Israel and anti-Semitic language. So both sides can be doing more to at least calm the situation, even if there's no major prospect for a breakthrough right now.
Well, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said, quote, it's not coincidental that the embassy move coincided with President Trump's announcement that he planned to abandon the Iran nuclear deal. What kind of message are the U.S. and Israel trying to send to Iran with these moves?
Well, I think that you have to separate the two a little bit. I'm not sure that putting the two together only makes things worse, if you ask me. And even dealing with one of these foreign policy challenges at a time is hard. Dealing with both of these foreign policy challenges in a span of only 5 days is dizzying for even the most effective and prepared administration. And this one, quite frankly, is not that effective and is still poorly staffed at many levels of government. So I'm not sure if today's message sends any kind of or today's events send any kind of a message to Iran. They do create opportunities for Iran to criticize the United States, opportunities for Iran to criticize Israel, opportunities for Iran to make headway in terms of its support for Hamas in Gaza and the West Bank, in terms of the weapons it provides and money and things like that. So I don't look at today as some kind of a strong message. I look at today as, instead of shooting ourselves in the foot, just as we did last week when we walked away from the nuclear deal, both of which are going to empower Iran.
All right, Ilan Goldenberg, thanks very much for your perspective.
Great. Thanks for having me.